Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Jack was sitting on the couch, watching Lisa as she got ready to go out. The sparkle in her eyes, the excited smile, and the extra time she spent choosing the perfect outfit made his heart tighten a bit. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but something about that night felt different. She was going to Rachel's bachelorette party. Rachel had been her best friend since college, and the chosen venue was, to put it plainly, a male strip club famous for its daring shows. Jack didn't like the idea, but he tried to rationalize it. After all, it wasn't as if Lisa would be there alone. Their friends' wives were going too. Still, something bothered him, like a persistent itch in his mind that he just couldn't ignore. "Will you be okay?" Lisa asked, adjusting the short dress that, in Jack's opinion, revealed more than he was used to. She normally didn't dress like that for a night out. "It's just one evening, honey. I promise I won't do anything you wouldn't approve of." Jack forced a smile. "Sure. I trust you. Just, be careful with the drinks, okay?" She rolled her eyes playfully, laughing as she put on her earrings. "Relax, Jack. It's just a fun night out with the girls." Her words echoed in his mind as she walked out the door. Fun with the girls. He repeated that to himself, trying to believe everything would be fine. Jack knew his friends were in the same boat. He had even exchanged messages with Mark, whose joking tone didn't completely hide the same worry Jack felt. Women at a male strip club? What could go wrong, right? Mark had typed, followed by a laughing emoji. "It's just one night. It'll be fine," Jack replied, more to himself than to his friend. As Lisa walked out, he tried to focus on something else. He turned on the TV, grabbed a beer, and opened a book, but nothing eased the growing unease at the back of his mind. He knew there was some insecurity in his feelings, but there was also something else, maybe intuition. Jack wasn't controlling, and he trusted Lisa, but he also knew that environments like that could lead to situations no one planned. He'd heard stories of bachelorette parties that went too far, but never imagined it could happen with Lisa. She was responsible, dedicated, and, above all, she loved their marriage. Still, as he tried to ignore the discomfort, unsettling thoughts flashed through his mind. What really happened in places like that? The idea of Lisa, along with her friends, surrounded by unknown men, muscular dancers, brought images he tried, unsuccessfully, to push away. He picked up his phone, thinking of sending her a message, maybe something casual like, "Having fun?" But that would look insecure. Jack didn't want to be that kind of husband. He put the phone back on the table and took a deep breath. All he had to do was trust her. The night seemed to drag on. Jack checked the time more often than he cared to admit. When he finally decided to go to bed, the unease was still there, like a weight on his chest. Lisa hadn't sent any messages since leaving, but that wasn't unusual. She always said that in moments like this, she preferred enjoying her night instead of staying on her phone. That night, as Jack tossed and turned in bed, something told him that this bachelorette party would be remembered in ways no one could predict. A week later, Jack was back to his usual routine. He woke up early, had breakfast, and started answering emails on his computer. It was just an ordinary morning until his cell phone vibrated insistently on the table. He saw it was Mark. It was strange to get a call so early. Usually, they texted, they rarely spoke on the phone. "Hello?" he answered, trying not to sound as tired as he felt. "Jack, did you see the video?" Mark's voice was low, almost a whisper, loaded with a tone that made Jack's heart race immediately. "What video?" Jack asked, feeling a surge of anxiety. Mark hesitated a moment. "I'll send it to you. But, watch it only when you're alone." Jack's heart pounded. He stared at his phone as the video arrived. The file had a generic name, VID 0723, but the description, trending now, made him swallow hard. He hesitated, gripping the phone tightly. Part of him wanted to ignore the video, delete it without opening it, but curiosity, or maybe fear, won out. He clicked play. The video started shaky, probably filmed by someone in secret. The setting was a men's locker room, full of laughter and muffled voices. The camera zoomed clumsily and then, like a punch to the gut, he saw her. Lisa was there. His Lisa. He recognized her by the outfit she had worn on the night of the bachelorette party, now caught up in something Jack would never have imagined. He froze. It was as if the world around him had stopped spinning. His blood rushed to his head, and a mix of shame, anger, and disbelief washed over him. No, this can't be, he murmured to himself, as if he could deny what his eyes were seeing. The shaky image showed Lisa involved with more than one man. She seemed intoxicated, behaving in a way Jack would never associate with the woman he'd known for so many years. He paused the video, unable to keep watching. His breathing was fast, and his hands trembled as he held the phone. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. How did this happen? Why would she do this? Was it a conscious choice or? Before he could delve deeper into his thoughts, the phone rang again. It was Mark. You saw it? Mark asked, but from his heavy breathing on the other end, it seemed he already knew the answer. I saw it, Jack replied, his voice shaking. He felt as if he were trapped in a nightmare, but the silence that followed made it clear this was painfully real. You're not the only one, Jack, Mark finally said. I just saw the video. My hands are still shaking. Kristen was there too. Kristen was Mark's wife. Jack closed his eyes and tried to process. This wasn't just about him and Lisa. Other women, other wives, were in the same video. Suddenly, what seemed like a harmless bachelorette party had become a collective nightmare. Have you talked to her? Mark asked. No, Jack replied immediately. He knew he had to confront Lisa, but he didn't know how. I don't even know what to say. What am I supposed to say? How can anyone explain this? The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Mark took a deep breath. I don't know, man. I can't believe this. I never thought something like this could happen. Not with her. Not with Lisa. She always seemed so committed to you. Jack looked at the front door. Lisa was still at work, or at least that's what he thought. The idea of facing her when she returned seemed impossible. He needed answers, but he feared what he might hear. He feared the woman he knew might be completely different from the person in the video. The rest of the day was a blur. Jack could barely focus on anything. Every time he closed his eyes, the video replayed in his mind, repeating like a never-ending nightmare. He didn't know how the video had leaked, or who filmed it, but the humiliation was overwhelming. More than the betrayal itself, it was the public exposure. This wasn't just between him and Lisa anymore. Now the whole world knew. When Lisa came home that night, Jack was sitting on the couch, still holding his phone. He couldn't hide the look of pain and disappointment. She immediately knew something was wrong. What is it, Jack? Why are you looking at me like that? She asked, putting her purse on the table. Jack raised his phone, showing her the screen. Want to explain this? Lisa's face went pale. She took a step back, as if the video were a loaded gun aimed at her. Jack. I can explain, she began, but her voice wavered. The words that followed would change everything. Lisa stood still for a few seconds, staring at the phone Jack held with a mix of anger and sadness. The silence between them was suffocating, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Jack, on the other hand, had no intention of easing the weight of the situation. Explain, he said, voice filled with disbelief. What exactly do you think you can explain here, Lisa? Because, honestly, I can't imagine anything that justifies this. She took a step forward, but hesitated. Her eyes were brimming with tears, and her expression was a mix of shame and panic. I don't know what to say, Jack. I drank too much. I don't even remember everything. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. You have to believe me. Jack let out a bitter laugh, somewhere between sarcasm and despair. A mistake? Lisa, this wasn't like tripping and spilling a glass of wine. You chose to do this. Don't come to me with, it was a mistake. She started crying, covering her face with her hands, but Jack felt no pity. Not now. Not after what he had seen. Each tear seemed to intensify the pain he felt in his chest. It was as if her betrayal was doubled by the fact she still tried to downplay what had happened. Do you think I'm not already destroyed enough, Lisa? Jack continued, getting up from the couch and pacing the living room. Now the whole world saw it. Do you understand what that means? I can't even leave the house without wondering if people will whisper behind my back. She fell to her knees, hands on her face. Please, Jack. Don't leave me. I don't know what came over me. It was the alcohol, the pressure of the moment. I love you, Jack. I swear I love you. Jack closed his eyes, trying to absorb her words, but all he could see was the memory of that video. He knew there was no erasing it from his mind, no pretending it hadn't happened. His trust had been shattered, and he didn't know if there was any way back. Their conversation was interrupted by another notification on Jack's phone. He looked at the screen, confused, until he saw a message from another friend. Man, you won't believe this, another video just leaked. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He clicked the link and once again was thrown into a nightmarish scenario. This time, the video showed Rachel, the bride-to-be, in the same locker room, involved in similar acts. The difference was that Rachel was laughing, fully aware of what she was doing. Jack looked at Lisa, still on the floor, crying. It's not just you, Lisa. It's Rachel too. And probably, who knows who else was there that night. Lisa raised her head, surprised, but said nothing. She knew that any justification at that moment was useless. Jack looked back at his phone. In his mind, the problem scale was growing. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, but a collective scandal that was destroying multiple lives. News of Rachel's video spread quickly. Ethan, the groom, was the next one hit by the storm. Jack tried to call him, but the line was busy. When he finally got through, Ethan's voice sounded as empty as Jack felt. You saw, didn't you? Ethan asked, not needing confirmation. I did, Jack replied. There was nothing more to say. They both fell silent for a few seconds, sharing a pain that words couldn't express. They canceled the wedding, Ethan finally said, in a tone that mixed humiliation and resignation. Rachel didn't even try to deny it. She said it was just a wild night. A wild night that destroyed everything. Jack felt even more lost. The situation was out of control. He didn't know if it was better to confront Lisa again or just give up trying to understand. But one thing was certain, that night had changed everything. Now, he didn't know if he could face his friends, his family, or even himself without carrying the weight of that public betrayal. The next morning, Jack woke up with heavy eyes and a confused mind. It was as if the previous night had been a blur, a nightmare from which he was still trying to wake up. Lisa had left the house before he could face her again. There was something symbolic about that morning silence, a forced pause in the chaos. But Jack knew that despite the apparent emptiness around him, the storm continued. As he made coffee, his phone started vibrating insistently on the table. One after another, familiar names appeared on the screen: Mark, Chris, even Ethan. He ignored the first calls, but messages soon started pouring in. Curious and uneasy, Jack finally gave in and opened the group chat he and his friends had created years ago, initially to plan barbecues and soccer games. Now, that same group had become a kind of confessional, where each sought support as they faced their personal tragedies. "This is getting worse, guys. I can't believe this happened to all of us," wrote Mark. Below that, Chris responded, "Kristen confessed everything. She said she was afraid the video would leak, so she decided to tell me first. As if that makes anything better." Jack read the messages with a mix of relief and discomfort. As much as he didn't wish this on anyone, knowing his friends were going through the same thing brought a strange sense of not being alone in the chaos. He decided to call Mark, whose message seemed more desperate than usual. Mark answered on the third ring. His voice was hoarse, as if he had spent the whole night talking or crying. "Jack. I don't know what to do, man. Kristen just left the house. She said she needs time to think, but I think she's just running from her guilt." Jack tried to find something to say, but everything felt inadequate. He knew exactly how Mark felt: the emptiness, the frustration, the inability to understand how something so solid could crumble in a matter of hours. "Lisa is still here, but I don't know for how long," Jack finally replied, breaking his silence. "I can't even look at her without remembering what I saw. And now, with Ethan, with Rachel, it feels like this is going to keep growing until it swallows us whole." Mark sighed on the other end. "Ethan is devastated. He sent a message to the group, but I don't think he can talk yet. The wedding was officially cancelled this morning. Did you see?" Jack shook his head, even though Mark couldn't see him. He opened the group again and found Ethan's message: "I can't believe it ended like this. Rachel destroyed everything in one night. I need some time." As he read, another message arrived, this time from Adam: "I don't know about you guys, but I can't pretend this never happened. I talked to my parents about divorce today. I know it sounds drastic, but how can I continue after this?" Jack felt a stab of identification. Although he hadn't made any final decision yet, he knew his relationship with Lisa would never be the same. But there was something that connected them all, something that seemed like a thin thread of redemption: their friendship. These men, who had always been casual companions for parties and games, now shared something deeper, a common pain that brought them together unexpectedly. Later that day, Jack suggested that they all meet in person. The idea sounded absurd at first: 5 men betrayed by the same chain of events. But at the same time, maybe that was exactly what they needed. Mark agreed immediately, followed by Chris, and eventually Adam. Ethan was the last to respond, but he also accepted. When they finally met at a small bar on the outskirts of town, the atmosphere was tense. Each one was lost in his own thoughts, but at the same time, all shared the same exhausted, desolate expression. Jack was the first to break the silence. "I don't know how I ended up here, but I don't think I can handle this alone. I need to understand, what do we do now? How do we move forward?" Mark picked up his beer, looking into its amber depths as if searching for answers. "I think the question isn't just how we move forward, but who will be after this. Because I'm not the same guy I was a week ago. And I don't think any of us are." Chris nodded slowly. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad I'm not alone. It doesn't make things easier, but at least I know someone else understands what I'm going through." As the night went on, something unexpected happened. The shared burden between them began to feel lighter. Not because the problem disappeared, but because, for the first time, they weren't facing it alone. They were no longer just 5 betrayed men, they had become a group united by pain, trying to find strength in each other to rebuild their lives. And in that bar, between bitter conversations and nervous laughter, they began to take the first steps toward a new beginning. After that night at the bar, something began to change among Jack and his friends. What had once been a casual group turned into an emotional support system. They started meeting regularly, whether to talk, play pool, or simply share a companionable silence. Still, the world outside their circle kept turning, along with the problems each one faced. For Jack, living with Lisa every day became unbearable. Every time she tried to get close, he pulled away, and her attempts to justify herself sounded hollow. There was no trust, and worse still, no desire to rebuild it. Jack started sleeping on the couch, a physical barrier reflecting the emotional barrier that already existed between them. Their home, once a refuge, now felt suffocating. Mark, on the other hand, decided to face the situation head-on. During one of their bar meetups, he said he'd asked Kristen to leave the house. "I couldn't take it anymore. Every time I look at her, all I see is that damn video. I loved her, man, but now, all I feel is disgust." Mark spoke firmly, though his eyes betrayed the pain he still carried. The separation was quick, almost surgical, but no less painful. Ethan, the quietest of the group, seemed to sink deeper into his anguish. He avoided talking about Rachel, and when someone brought it up, he changed the subject. But in a moment of honesty, after a few beers, Ethan finally opened up. "You know what hurts the most? It's not just what she did to me. It's what she destroyed. I spent months planning that wedding, thinking it would be the start of our life together. Now it's all a joke." Jack realized Ethan wasn't just talking about Rachel, but the future he had envisioned for himself. It was a feeling Jack knew well. He, too, had spent years building a life with Lisa, believing she was his partner, his foundation. Now, all that remained was a shadow of what once was. Yet, in the midst of so much pain and betrayal, something unexpected emerged, the collective strength of the group. They decided they wouldn't let what happened define them. Jack was the first to propose something different. "What if we do something together? Something that takes us out of this misery and makes us feel alive again." The idea seemed absurd at first, but quickly gained support. They started planning small getaways, weekend trips to breathe outside the suffocating environment they lived in. The first was to a nearby lake, where they rented a cabin. There, between hikes, barbecues, and long talks around a campfire, they rediscovered parts of themselves buried beneath the pain. During one of these trips, Chris, always the most optimistic, raised an interesting point. "Have you stopped to think that, as horrible as this has been, it brought us something good? I mean, we were never this close before. We were just guys who hung out sometimes. Now we're family." The word hung in the air for a few seconds. Family. To Jack, it sounded strange, but also comforting. He looked at the other men around the fire and realized Chris was right. They had become more than friends. They were mutual support, a safety net none of them knew they needed before everything fell apart. Still, it wasn't all easy. Reality kept knocking on the door. Jack knew he would eventually have to make a decision about Lisa. During one of the fireside talks, Ethan asked, "Do you think it's still possible to save this, Jack? You and Lisa?" Jack shook his head, staring at the dancing flames. "I wish I could say yes. I'd like to believe the love we had is still there somehow. But every time I look at her, all I feel is emptiness. I don't know if that can be fixed." Ethan nodded, understanding better than anyone. "Sometimes, Jack, we have to accept that some things can't be fixed. And that's okay. It's not failure, it's just part of life." Those words stayed with Jack for a long time. He knew the next step would be the hardest. But for the first time, he felt that whatever decision he made, he wouldn't be alone. He had his friends, his new family, by his side. And that, in some way, made it a bit more bearable. In the following days, Jack finally concluded that staying married to Lisa would just prolong a pain with no solution. That night, when she came home from work, he was sitting on the couch, the same place where the initial confrontation had happened. But this time, he wasn't nervous. He felt a strange calm, as if he had finally accepted the inevitable. "Lisa, we need to talk," he began, voice firm but free of anger. She stopped in the middle of the living room, holding her purse. There was something in Jack's eyes that made her realize this was no longer an argument, but an ending. "I can't do this anymore," he continued. "I can't move forward after what happened. I'm not strong enough to forget, and I think that would make me less than who I am. I deserve more than living with this doubt and pain. And, honestly, you deserve someone who can forgive you. But that person isn't me." Lisa started crying, trying to argue, but Jack had already made up his mind. He didn't interrupt her or judge her, he just stayed calm while she tried to find words that might change his mind. When he finally stood up, he hugged her, not as a husband, but as someone who recognized what they had shared in the past. "I hope you find peace, Lisa," he said softly. "But our story ends here." That same week, Mark finalized the divorce papers with Kristen. The separation was tense at first, with arguments and accusations, but they eventually reached an agreement. Mark made it clear he held no grudge, but he also couldn't rebuild what they had lost. Chris took a similar path, though with less drama. After confessing and asking for forgiveness, his wife left home voluntarily. Chris focused on their children, channeling his energy into them and finding new motivation to move on. Ethan, finally, ended things with Rachel. She tried to win him back, claiming it was a one-time lapse in judgment, a moment of madness. But Ethan couldn't erase what he had seen and lost. He sold the house they'd bought together and used the money to travel, determined to rediscover himself without her. When the five friends met again, there was something different in the air. The pain was still there, but it felt lighter, like a weight that had begun to lift. They raised a toast, not to their separations, but to the new beginnings each of them was embracing. Jack looked around, seeing in his friends' faces the strength they had all found in adversity. "I think, in the end, we learned something from all this," he said, raising his glass. "No matter what life throws at us, we don't have to face it alone. And sometimes, starting over is exactly what we need." The others nodded, clinking their glasses with his. In that moment, Jack realized that although he had lost his marriage, he had gained something even more valuable, a group of friends who had become his true family. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.